money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Back days, we have controversy around the MLB All-Star festivities, and I've got a very happy co-host today because of some NBA news that came down this morning. We'll get to it all as we welcome you in to Follow the Money on this Wednesday. Stormy, Buonantony, and Jonathan Von Tobel with you, filling in for Mitch and Paulie, who will be back on the desk on Monday. Loaded show on deck over the course of the next 3 hours, with Mountain West Media Days beginning here on the property at Circa Resort and Casino, where we are broadcasting from. We'll have VP of Operations Mike Palm on set to discuss the event and a lot more. We'll also do an in-depth preview of the league, continue our CFP rankings. Also coming up this hour, Reid Fowler of PGA Tour Live and ESPN Radio going to help us preview the Open Championship. And as VSiN's football training camp week rolls on, we've got plenty of NFL to discuss. Looking forward to that conversation with Yahoo NFL betting analyst Frank Schwab as part of that conversation in hour 3. But let's start with the reason JVT is so happy right now.
Which is?
Okay, I'll do it. The Phoenix Suns have elected
you're the lead. Come on, it's
to
not the
buy
Phoenix Suns.
out the remainder of Bradley Beal's contract, clearing the way for him to sign with a certain team in Los Angeles. JVT's very happy about.
Get so irritated about it. Yeah, Los Angeles Clippers.
I was setting you up for your moment.
Have agreed to terms with the, or not agreed to terms. It is expected that Bradley Beal is going to sign their 2-year deal, second-year buyout. They're giving him just under $6 million a year. That's obviously massive. You know, the reason why Bradley Beal went from being considered an awful contract to now being an incredible asset is because of just that. He was set to make about $50 million a year. Now, with the wave and the stretch, now he's free to join another team, and he's going to be a lot cheaper. Stormy, this is a near 20-point-per-game scorer on near 50, 40, 90 splits that is available for $6 million a year. That's a fantastic add to a team that, as we talked about, was it 2 weeks ago on Money Moves, that was kind of signaling this is what they're going to try to do. They needed another ball handler on that roster. They desperately needed some more shooting, some more scoring to at least supplement what they were looking at. They had a great offseason for the most part, adding Brook Lopez and doing what they did with this roster overall. This is, on paper, a team that is going to be extremely competitive, potentially a top 3 seed in the Western Conference, and has set themselves up, because I know we don't talk about this because we're bettors. The other big thing about what the Clippers have done this offseason that we generally don't care about in this space, they have set themselves up for that the 27 year. They have nothing on the books save for like one player. So they are ready to reset really quickly if they need to here in the next couple of years. But this team, when you look at the potential of getting John Collins there to fill the void at power forward, having Bradley Beal now as your primary shooting guard next to James Harden totally fits, giving Kawhi Leonard a lot of help along, especially when we're talking about a team that probably is going to miss some games from Kawhi Leonard. I don't think that there is really any question that they knocked it out of the park when it comes to this offseason. They got to put it all together.
Right.
They're 20-1 to win the NBA Finals. I think you could argue that if you tell me everybody's healthy, those numbers should be shorter. The big question is if, though. Bradley Beal has missed time. Kawhi Leonard has missed time. Ebbs and flows of a season. You might get something a little bit better than 20-1, but I don't think there's any question that this team could win the Western Conference with the roster they have right now.
Well, and I was going to say, I love that you did bring this up a couple weeks ago as something that could potentially happen. And if you had interest on buying in on the Clippers, maybe do it now because this could be on the horizon. Looking at the FanDuel odds right now for an NBA title, the Clippers are 18-1 in the Western Conference, 10-1. So even lower than we initially thought. The Western Conference is interesting, though. So you mentioned them being a potential top 3 there. Who do you think they are better than when you look at the Thunder, Rockets, Nuggets, obviously? Some of these big teams. What will the Lakers and Timberwolves be are fair questions.
I mean, I think if we're talking about, again, peak your powers, everybody's healthy, I think it's fair to say that the order is 1A, 1B, Thunder, Nuggets, and then 2A, 2B, if you will, Rockets, Clippers. I would think that the Clippers have a slight edge with their ability to do what they can on offense and on defense, again, if everybody's healthy. But the fact that the Rockets, at the very least, have a younger core, and we have seen more consistency in terms of availability for what this team has, I think you give them a slight edge. But I think it's Thunder and Nuggets together at the top. I do think that they are close to equals with one another. And then I think you get this little void of, all right, maybe there's a team that can slide in there. We should also not forget the Minnesota Timberwolves, who obviously have made it to the Western Conference Finals and did get dispatched by the Minnesota Timberwolves, or excuse me, by the Oklahoma City Thunder this last year. But I think that you're talking about Thunder, Nuggets in their own tier, and then that trio of Rockets, Timberwolves, and Clippers being near equals to one another.
Meanwhile, on the flip side of this, the Beal, Durant, and Booker experiment in Phoenix did not work out. On the odds board for the Western Conference, the Suns going into next year 300-1.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of the betting drama that took place last night in the MLB All-Star Game, where while the over 7 was an easy cash, didn't have to worry about that one. It depended where you bet how the result played out for the NL winning this thing in the swing off, which, quite frankly, did you know that was a thing? Apparently, It's been in action for the last 3 seasons, but they just haven't needed it until last night.
Yeah, I didn't know. I don't know. The intricacies of the rules of the MLB All-Star Game are not
not high
at the
on
top,
the priority
not
list.
at the top of mind. But it goes to show that you probably should know what you're getting into. As we talk about this all the time, we talked a little bit about the people that were complaining about the home run derby. We mentioned yesterday, I don't know if we said this on the air or if I was just mentioning this off the air, but it's worth reiterating that Brent Rooker, it was reported, I think it's Susan Slusser who covers the Athletics, said that he actually didn't have enough balls in his bucket for his pitcher in the home run derby. He was told that after, and then everybody else after him subsequently got their buckets replaced and fixed in terms of how many baseballs they should have in there. So this is the All-Star events, something that is imperfect, unlike the regular season events, which have very strict rules and whatnot. But you should know what you're getting into, and it sounds like we know now. You should have known what you're getting into, considering that I think a lot of people were surprised that not only was it a swing-off at the end, but how books graded said swing-off.
And I guess one book even had an option. It was like 7-1 or something like that for the game to go to a swing-off. But I was looking at the daily newsletter this morning that Bill AD puts out every single day, and he said Circa, where we're broadcasting from, and Caesars, for example, ruled the money line bet to be a push. Other books, DraftKings and FanDuel, graded it as a win for the National League. And for anyone who missed it, game's tied after 9 innings. The swing-off is 3 players from each team who gets the most home runs in this option, which then also made a big swing for who wins MVP for the All-Star game, because Kyle Schwarber, who didn't have a single hit through 9 innings, goes 3 for 3 in the swing-off to then catapult him to winning MVP and cashing that ticket.
Yeah, and it kind of rings a little hollow, right, when you're talking about ruling the event as a push, but then cashing MVP of the event. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're telling us from a grading standpoint that the MVP is valid enough that we're going to cash this, but the event is considered a push. That, to me, like, I can understand what the complaint would be there if you're talking about a book that decided to rule that a push. But like we talked about too, right? You look a little bit deeper in some of these MVP markets, or you just don't know where they're going to come from, when guys are going to come up in high leverage situations, and no better high leverage situation than a swing off, I suppose. And
so Schwarber goes 3 for 3, which then, if you were somebody that had a Pete Alonso ticket, you're probably really frustrated because he had a 3-run shot earlier in the game that extended the lead out to 5-0, and he was going to be the closer at the end of this thing, but didn't even get a chance because Jonathan Aranda couldn't hit 1 home run to tie it to give Alonso that opportunity. So that's like just another wrinkle to all of this that played out so interestingly. What did you think overall of the All-Star game as a whole?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was shaping up to be one of the more boring All-Star games we'd ever seen until we finally got a little drama, obviously, there at the end to tie the game up.
Well, since you watched audio off.
I did watch audio off. I was at a bar, obviously.
Did you like the uniforms? Finally, we're back. Since you say I am the resident uniform wet blanket of the network, I actually texted you guys last night. I think it's great. I think it makes a difference.
I still think this falls under, though, wet blanketness for the uniforms. I'm sorry. I can't do this every year. All of you people complain about these All-Star uniforms every year. Nobody's ever happy when it comes to these damn uniforms. So I'm happy that they have these, so I don't have to get these stupid tweets on my timeline every single year. I hate these uniforms. We had it during the home run derby. Again, you just keep complaining. Like, enough. I don't think that people honestly enjoy sports. I think what they like to do is just complain about every single facet of every single one of these things. Nothing is ever good enough for people. I mean, nothing. And I'm very happy we have these uniforms.
People do just like to complain.
Oh, that's all they do.
There's like 2 areas of social media that are like you can use social media for good, and there's the happy-go-lucky, let's share these amazing stories. And then even in the comments of those stories, it's people going off on about how it's terrible. Like finding something bad in the good even happens
there was
regularly.
never,
That's just society in 2025.
There was never, ever going to be a uniform design that made anybody happy for Major League Baseball All-Star games. Like it just wasn't going to happen. So just give them their normal uniforms and tell everybody shut up.
Well,
and
that's what I was
finally
going to say. The right answer was what they did, and now let's just not mess it up anymore. Let's just keep this as is and keep it fun.
I think it looks silly that everybody's all in different uniforms, all in the field together, but whatever.
What I think is silly is having all of the players have 30 minutes of intros standing out there while Ludacris is dancing around and they're having to high-five backup dancers. Like Aaron Boone high-fiving all of these random strangers as he goes.
Big
It's
Ludacris
weird,
guy.
very weird for me. I love the automated balls and strikes, though. And we were talking about this earlier with that being something that's been integrated in the minor leagues. It was seamless. It was so easy. We saw 3 examples of it yesterday. 2 of the calls were overturned. 1 was confirmed, but it was quick. It was easy. Let's do this.
Have you been to an Aviators game out here since they've implemented it?
No.
So I've been to a couple, and it's like you said, it's easy. Just tap the helmet. All right, let's go. Want to challenge that? Cool. Within 30 seconds, we have a ruling. We move on. That's the best part about it, too. None of this nonsense, like hustling over to the sideline to look at the little box and like wait for 20 minutes, or going over to have the person at the scorer's table turn the TV around, take another 20 minutes. It's quick. I think it should be implemented starting on Thursday, but that's just me.
It seemed so easy, and like nobody died. That was the big takeaway. It's amazing. Nobody died. It wasn't this overwhelming thing that made the umpire look terrible, but this is something that moving forward can help you weed out some of the bad apples and guys that aren't doing their jobs particularly well.
That should be absolutely it.
Which is what you want.
Yes, you should strive. You're never going to get to perfection, but on the way to perfection, there's a stop at excellence, Stormy. And you need that if we're talking about officiating these games.
And this is coming from somebody who's very anti-robot. So that's how you know it's got to be good.
Well, this is not a intelligent robot. It's just
taking away American jobs. We got to take our first time out of the day. When we come back, diving into the Mountain West Conference for the first time. Mountain West Media Days underway. You can already see the big helmets on the screen behind us. Fresno State on the desk outside. We'll break it all down next.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Follow the Money rolls on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. You see the sports book here at Circa Resort and Casino, where we've got the Fresno State Bulldogs helmet on rotation as Mountain West Media Days are underway for the next 48 hours here at Circa. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on the program. And JVT, you actually are writing up the Mountain West Conference for our college football betting guide, which will be here soon.
Yes, I am, indeed, and very much looking forward to football season. Mountain West is a great conference, as you well know, and it is the swan song, essentially, of the Mountain West. So certain programs have decided to ruin it and leave, but that's okay because other certain programs will then rule the roost until they leave for the Big 12.
I blame the 2-pack, by the way, for all of this dissension because the Mountain West was all good and friendly with them, trying to welcome them, let them play Mountain West schedules, and then what do? They just go take everybody. They poach the entire conference, and I know this doesn't matter a lot for our betting purposes, but just to run through it, 5 programs, my alma mater, San Diego State, Boise State, Fresno State on the screen behind you, Colorado State, and Utah State, all set to bail for the Pac-12 next season. The 7 remaining schools are going to welcome in some new partners. Hawaii, which has been football only, goes to a full-time member. UC Davis, UTEP, NIU will be football only. Grand Canyon as a non-football member. And lots of questions about will even the programs that are expected to be in the Mountain West continue to be. I know UNLV to the Big 12 has been something that's been circulating and seeing if that could work out. Apparently, by the way, we also have litigation on the way between the Mountain West and Pac-12, so that's fun.
Yes, indeed. So it's your program's fault. I'm just going to say that. And we can move on from there. But look, I think it's an interesting conference for many different reasons. The first of which is, I think there's a reality that we're looking at here where Boise State could potentially run away with the Mountain West Conference. They are the odds-on favorite to do so. From an odds perspective, the biggest competitor to the Boise State Broncos is a UNLV team which brings back a grand total of 5 starters. By the way, one of those starters is actually a guy who only played in about 5 games last year before he got injured. That would be Marcel McDuffie on defense. So if you look at this overall, this seems to be a somewhat weak conference below Boise State. And even Boise State has some, I think, question marks about what they're going to be. Obviously, Ashton Genty is now gone. The big replacement at running back is, on paper at least right now, going to be Malik Sherrod, former Fresno State running back. His last healthy year with the Bulldogs, he ran for over 900 yards, had his season cut short for injury last year. But that's a gaping hole. And I want to point out this. We brought this up ever so just really quickly yesterday. It is somewhat interesting that Maddox Madsen didn't make the trip for media days. For many reasons, one of which is, Stormy, if you actually look at some of the numbers for Madsen, he was fine, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But one thing that really sticks out about his profile, he put the ball in danger a lot, actually. Turnover-worthy play rate of 4.3%, despite the fact that he only threw just 6 interceptions. So if you see that about the same level again, can you trust that Madsen is going to get lucky once more and just not commit turnovers despite constantly putting the ball in danger? You'd also think that maybe, with the fact that Genty's going to be gone, that Sherrod not going to be the same guy. More's going to be on Madsen's shoulders. What if we get some regression here on at the most important position? So I've really wrestled with how to handle this, because you have this Boise State team that has some turnover, should be very good defensively, but questions at an important position like quarterback and at running back. But then you have a conference, you look around, you go, okay, like, who am I going to really bank on here? Is it going to be UNLV with a new head coach and a brand new team? Is it going to be San Jose State, who brings back guys like Walker Eget, but only have about 12 dudes coming back and still only won 7 games last year and really fell off a cliff at the tail end of the season, right? And we're losing games. I think it just kind of brings me back to the inevitability that Boise State's going to win this conference, but I think it's kind of a weak one.
And looking at the schedule that Boise State gets to play as well, where you get UNLV coming to you, your toughest game is going to be in South Bend, Notre Dame, which I think you already account for as a loss anyways. So this schedule plays out very nicely for them. And should they get that win or fare very well in that, that plays well to their college football playoff opportunity, which could be their plus 190 for them to make the playoff for the second year in a row. The Mountain West, unlike the Big 12, did still have a preseason poll for the league that came out this year. Boise State did get 35 of those potential first place votes. UNLV got the other 4. The Rebs, of course, have fallen to Boise State in that title game back-to-back years, but Barry Odom, as we kind of referenced in passing, is off to Purdue. Yep. Dan Mullen has stepped in as he's revamped that roster. But San Jose State, to go back to them, this is a team that you brought up yesterday that actually could be the second-best team in the league, potentially. Year 2 under Ken Niumatalolo, 7 wins a season ago. They have a very advantageous schedule as well. They lose their star wide receiver in Nash, but bring a lot back.
Yeah, and I think it's not, I don't want to, because I went back and looked up my conference preview.
You changed your mind
overnight? No.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I went back and looked at my conference preview from last year, and so we break it down like intro, offense, defense, and the outlook for the season. And my outlook for the season for San Jose State was just like, the first words were just not great. But they went over their win total. They were a pretty good team. As I mentioned, if you look at the last few games, they did kind of fall off a little bit when you talk about especially their defense not really holding up. But the key here for them is, for those who maybe don't remember, this is old news by now, just because Niumatalolo's there, it is not the offense that we're used to with Ken Niumatalolo. No, it is the spread and shred, and Walker Eget did a really great job with this last season when you look at what he was able to do through the air. And I think that you're going to look at this and go, you know what? Like, I think that he is going to be able to do it yet again. The most important part for a guy like Eget is he did not, the opposite of what we're talking about with Maddox Madsen, put the ball in danger at all. Turnover-worthy play rate of just 2.1%. It's a very low and very good turnover-worthy play rate. And I just think that this seems now, with him now in full control, remember, he didn't take over as a full-time starter until week 8 for San Jose State last season, that you're going to look at this and go, okay, maybe by default, if Dan Mullen can't really find the magic again for UNLV that has a massive amount of roster turnover, and if teams like Colorado State or Fresno State don't really pan out, which I don't think is going to happen for Colorado State, we can get into why. I think they just kind of fill that void by default because Niumatalolo is an awesome coach. He's got his returning quarterback, and they've got enough coming back where they're going to be just fine. But I don't know if that speaks so much to San Jose State being great as it does to the vacuum of power in that second slot in the Mountain West right now on paper. I
laugh about your comment about the triple option because Tim Murray on VSiN Primetime last night actually had the San Jose State athletic director on the show and asked him, like, how early in your interview with Ken Niumatalolo did you bring up what offense are you planning to run? He said it was question 3. Yeah. So it was very early in the process to bring him over. But we'll see if they can make that steady progress. You mentioned Colorado State, though, so why don't we go down that road? An 8-4 year for them. Again, they did lose in the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, which is fun just to say. But what is your outlook for the Rams this year?
I don't know what they're getting at quarterback, and I don't really love exactly what they have. We'll see if that's the case. So right now, it would seem that on paper, Braden Fowler and Nicolosi is still going to be their starting quarterback. But if you look at everything coming back overall and what that could be, they do bring an Akron transfer, Taj Bullock, who maybe is going to see some time, potentially take the job over. But I've never really kind of bought into this. If you remember 2 years ago, Fowler Nicolosi kind of took over, burst onto the scene, had a pretty decent game against Colorado. But since then, it's really kind of fallen off. Last year, 7.2 yards per attempt, just 14 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He, too, has had a really big problem throughout his entire career, putting the ball in danger. 2023, he had a turnover worthy play rate of over 5%. For a career, it's at 4.2%. I just don't know if you can trust the most important position here for Colorado State overall. And if that's going to be the case, I just don't know what this team's ceiling is realistically going to be when you look at a team that price-wise and where they're being ranked when you're talking about odds to win this, win total combined with the schedule. I mean, I completely agree. Their win total is 6.5, Stormy, but it's heavily shaded to the under. It's like minus 170, minus 165, depending on where you look. You look at some of the teams that they're going to have to face here. Look at the back end of the schedule, for example. Well, you can start October 10th. You get Fresno State at home, but that's a comparable coin flip type spot. Laramie's never easy to play in. You get the UNLV, the defending runner-ups, if you will, to go and take on at home. You end with Boise State and Air Force, who, by the way, Air Force I think is going to be great this year, given back what they have coming back in terms of overall production. I think there's a reality where you're looking at Colorado State again and looking at them as, I think at most, a 6-win team. And again, the market would at least feel the same way that I am, looking at that 6.5 for the season win total, shaded heavily to the under, but just not a big Rams guy for the most part.
Picked 4th in the preseason predicted order of finish, 5th on the odds board, tied with that aforementioned Air Force Falcons team at 16-1. I'll lay out those odds for you again. Boise State, your odds on favorite, minus 130. UNLV plus 550. San Jose State 7-1. Fresno State 9-1, and then Colorado and Air Force 16-1. I know that this is a carryover conversation that we're going to have a little bit later on in the program, talking through some more specific win totals for the conference as a whole, ones you really like, ones you really don't like. But on the way out, real quickly, because Fresno State is kind of sandwiched in there, and they're the ones that are behind us on the stage. Any initial thought?
No, we have a new head coach taking over, so that's going to be the big one here for Fresno State, is how this looks like for Matt Entz and how he's going to rebuild this. This has been a team that's actually had quite a bit of turnover for the most part at the most important, we'll call it logistical position of head coach over the last couple of years. I haven't had really a strong read on where I think Fresno is going to be, so I think the market's probably got them priced almost right. But would lean a little bit toward the over. I do like what Entz is going to bring to the table when you're talking about his system overall.
Okay, and we mentioned earlier that the college football betting guide is going to be out soon. You will have that right up for the Mountain West. I know Matt Youmans is doing the SEC, but so much great information is going to go in there. And the good news is, if you sign up at vsin.com/subscribe right now, in addition to the college football guide that you get coming out soon, you get the NFL betting guide as well to help you get set for the season, out already. $175 right now for our early bird special. That ends, though, that pricing special ends July 31st. So get in there now. You get the guides. You get everything we have to offer up at vsin.com and all of the betting tools as well. We're going to step aside. When we come back, shifting gears to the links, Reid Fowler of PGA Tour Live and ESPN Radio going to give us his preview of the Open Championship next.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
We are on to the 4th and final major of the PGA Tour season, the Open Championship, getting underway from Royal Portrush Golf Club in Northern Ireland on Thursday. Well, Thursday for them. It is later on tonight for us on the West Coast, 10:35 Pacific time, 1:35 for those of you out east. It is a full field event. Lots of big names, top 70 and ties make the cut. And to help us break it all down, we welcome in to Follow the Money, Reid Fowler, broadcaster and betting analyst. You can catch him on ESPN Radio and PGA Tour Live at Reid T. Fowler on X. And these European events can certainly mess with the sleep schedule. Hey, Reid, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Stormy? Or they can improve it, because now what I've heard, and it's not me, what I've heard is a golf nap is a really good and quality nap. Not for me, not for this guy, because the Open Championship, always a lot of fun. Like you mentioned, starts at 1:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 for you guys in the Pacific, and 7:30 if you're in Hawaii. If you're all the way out in Hawaii, it's 7:30. Primetime golf for you guys out in Hawaii, but really excited to get things going.
So I can speak to the golf nap thing, and actually the best one is this proved I was getting old and I was a true father. 2 years ago, Reid, during the U.S. Open in the final, I think it was the final round, I fell asleep, but then woke up and said, hey, I'm watching that, when my kid tried to change the channel. Like that, that is peak adulting right there and peak golf nap.
That's right. You're absolutely right. I'm old enough to know that I have to stand up for my parents and go change the channel and fix the antenna ears on the channel. So I got you, JVT. I'm right there with you.
That's so good. Well, hey, let's jump into it. I know a big talking point this week and last week as well, of course, is links golf being different from your typical American golf course. So how for you as a golf bettor and handicapper, does that change your approach as you break down this event?
Sure, absolutely, Stormy. When you look at links golf, it's not just the style in which it's different, right? There's a different strategy. You've heard Scheffler say it in his pressers. You've heard all these guys say it, that it's just a different style of play, right? Strategy-wise, you have to keep your mentals about you in terms of getting a weird lie here or there, especially with the weather as well, right? We know with Royal Portrush, last time we saw it was 2019. We saw that weather come through, and Shane Lowry, the local, star, so to speak, you started to see the cream rise to the top. And so guys like Shane Lowry, Fleetwood has a lot of experience here. We'll get to some other guys, too, on the European side that you really want. It's just a different test, and it's a different style of golf. Not to say that, your run-of-the-mill guys that play well on PGA Tour courses can play well here, but usually you want to skew towards the players that, A, have value, but also, B, have experience, sort of that Venn diagram with those two things in mind.
So I wanted to bring up the favorite, Scottie Scheffler, and I want to present it like this, Reid, because I feel like there's some quiet, not anti-Scottie sentiment, but maybe some doubts. And the reason why I think that is, first off, I was in a golf draft yesterday. He actually went third overall. Rory went first. John Rahm went second. And then I was watching the Golf Channel earlier this morning, and they brought up some great statistics about his putter when he crosses the pond and goes and plays in some of these European events. Do you think that sticks for Scheffler here in terms of maybe the putter not being exactly where he wants it to be? Or are we just kind of thinking too much about this and this dude's going to be just fine?
Yeah, more of the latter, JVT. But this is what we do in golf too, right? And especially, or just any sport, is we look at, well, because they're doing so well. It's like the Nikola Jokic argument, where you have voter fatigue of MVP. So you look at all the things that, well, he doesn't necessarily do this well. He doesn't need to get back on defense. And so we look at Scottie and say, look, over the last 24 rounds, he's first in strokes gained total, fourth off the tee, first in approach, and first in tee to green. But God forbid he's 10th in strokes gained putting. Mm-hmm. So now we got to write something. Now we got to talk about something that, well, when he comes across the pond, he's not that great. Yeah, maybe that's the case. But at the same time, how many times does he get to show those? So right, you really got to look at the numbers and say, okay, yes, he doesn't do well necessarily on the greens because, yeah, it's a little more crunchy. The stint is at 11 as opposed to 13, which is faster, obviously. And a lot of these guys like faster greens, which is why experience comes into play. But I would err on the side of caution of fading Scottie. We always talk about this. We don't bet him, right, because he's just not value. But the second you fade Scottie, the second you fade guys like Tiger, the second you fade Jokic, what does he do? He goes for a triple-double, and you missed out on maybe that bet, of a triple-double hitting yet again at plus money. That's the problem with Scottie. You don't want to bet him outright. Take it into, like we've talked about ad nauseum, if you want to do futures, right, maybe the Rams to win the NFC with Scottie, top 5 or Scottie winning this outright. That's how you get value from Scottie right now, or you wait until he's 5, 6, 10 back, and then you wait till he's 3 back or 2 back on Sunday going into the final back 9.
Reid Fowler, PGA Tour live broadcaster, betting analyst, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. So if you are not looking to bet a plus 450 favorite at the top of the board pre-flop, where would you recommend people look as you go through the Open Championship odds?
Yeah, one guy, Stormy, that I like and that a lot of people probably have circled too is Viktor Hovland. Look, you mentioned someone who's always kind of been there, right? He's not necessarily a major winner. He's not a major winner yet, but we know that he has the pedigree. Talk about someone who's got a lot of struggles when it comes to putting, when it comes to his swing. But if you take a look at his last 3 starts, 25th at Memorial, 3rd at the U.S. Open, and 11th at the Genesis Scottish Open. He's striking the ball really well. He gained, guys, over 8 strokes at the U.S. Open. That is very impressive, and that's the type that you want. 28th at the PGA Championship, 21st at the Masters. Look, and he won Valspar knowing that he didn't have his best stuff. He lost strokes around the green, and he won Valspar. I really like him at 30-1. I don't think, guys, that I'm going anything anything shorter than that. I know Rahm, Bryson, Xander, those guys are here. Tommy Fleetwood, obviously a name that a lot of people circle, but Viktor Hovland right now at 30-1 is a lot of value for me, and that's where I'm going to start with my betting card, Stormy.
Is there any golfer that you hear a lot of that you disagree on? One outlier opinion you have for this tournament?
Yeah, look, Rory's always someone that's going to pop up, from now until the end, until he stops playing. I think Rahm as well, because Rahm had a nice showing at the Masters. He had a nice showing. He's, starting to come back into form. Obviously plays well on live. But some of those guys right now, I just don't see the style in which they play right now and where their numbers are at right now. I've heard a lot of Fleetwood. Trust me when I say this. I would love to bet Fleetwood, but I'm just not there. And that's why, guys, I'm leaning more towards that mid-range of 30 to 50, because if you take a look at the previous winners, it really kind of comes in that area of that 30 to 50. And I think Shane was right around there when he won back in 2019. So I'm fading guys, at that. If you think there's some drift with like a Rahm or maybe with a Bryson and some of these guys, I'm starting a little bit deeper in the board, not too deep.
Would one of those guys be Robert McIntyre?
Yes, it is, JVT. It's like you're incepted my mind here. 5 for 5 cuts made, JVT, at the Open. That's pretty good for the lefty, right? For the southpaw. 6 at Portrush in 2019, and he was a rookie, guys. And so when you take that into consideration, again, very good in bad weather. Remember that, right? Runner-up at Oakmont in June. This guy ranks 27th or just under 30th in show stain approach, and he's really, really good with the wedge. When I say experience, it's not just, they played in this kind of weather before, but they've done well and they've experienced. They know the texture, they know the feel, they know when to press, they know when to lay off. That's the type of stuff that I like. And it kind of feels, right, like with him winning the Canadian Open, with him winning the Scottish last year, it kind of feels like he's right there. I love him at 40 to 1. And like I mentioned, Victor, and one player, too, that is more of the American-esque player, so to speak, is Russell Henley. He's also someone that I always circle when it comes to majors, especially where his number is at. 5th in last year's Open, right? And he's got really good form coming into this tournament. So give me Russell Henley as sort of that American player, quote unquote, but I like that you wouldn't necessarily think for this tournament.
Reid, because you mentioned the weather, and that's always so important in the golf world, we were showing some video of the course, and you can't help but notice there aren't many trees either. When the wind is coming through, you're not going to get that blockage. What should people know about the weather out there in Northern Ireland right now? Yeah. A wind and rain is likely, Stormy. And again, as betting prognosticators, we're like, meteorologists, where we try to tell you what we think is going to happen, but things can change on a moment's notice. But wind and rain most likely. And that's ideal. This is what you want for links, right? And that's why you like the links specialists. And Portrush, look, it's contoured greens. You need to make shots over here. It's small, right? So, it's kind of Masters Augusta-esque, where you need to make these shots around the greens. But again, it's going to be windy and rainy. But still yet, and this is why the superintendents are so great at what they do, it's still going to be firm and fast. So you got to kind of mix and play and maybe kind of create your card where you kind of get those players that do well on fast and firm greens or conditions, but then also the link specialist. And that's why Robert McIntyre kind of fits all of those for me as well. Reid, thank you for doing this. Enjoy the late night. Get a good nap in.
All right. Thanks, Stormy. You guys too. Take care.
Thank you, Reid. Follow him on X again at Reid T. Fowler. We're doing great work, not only with PGA Tour Live, but ESPN Radio as well. The golf draft last night was fun.
It was. Just like every other aspect of fantasy draft pools, I love my team. I'm sure I'm just going to get smoked. My first pick was Scotty Scheffler. We were the team that were third overall, yeah. Okay. And Scotty fell to us, and I was very surprised. Rory went first overall. I thought we were going to get stuck with Rory when we got the third pick.
I don't think getting stuck with is not the way you should put that about Rory on, European soil. We can discuss. Okay. And we will have more Open Championship conversation a little bit later on, but when we return, win some, lose some on Follow the Money. Stay with us.
Win Some, Lose Some is sponsored by the Sharp Plays.
Were you a winner last night? Wow, winning. Or was it a rough one?
Well, they can't all be winners, can they?
Loser! You're a loser!
Paulie Howard recaps the night in sports betting in Win Some, Lose Some.
All right, this is what happens when you trust somebody to do your job. Win some. Major League Baseball All-Star Game. This should technically be a lose some, Stormy Buonantony.
Why is that?
Because we saw the odds move from 7 over -115 to 7 under -125. No, you're right. This is a win some.
Yeah.
They got it. No, you're right. You're right. See, that's why you should have done it. I did that on purpose. All right, Major League Baseball All-Star Game over 7 gets there. Looked like it wasn't for a few innings. The most boring All-Star Game we've ever seen.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah, bottom of the 6th inning, everything explodes. You get to the top of the 7th. 8 runs over the span of 2 half innings. And just like that, this game goes over the total. How about American League bettors? Good for you.
Yeah.
You get a push. I was right the whole time. Said there was value on the American League. And guess what? They didn't lose. How about that? The Hank Aaron tribute, I actually did not get to see this. I was watching somewhere without sound. You and Ortega, our wonderful producer, were big fans of this.
This was so cool. I don't know how it came across for the people that were sitting in the stands necessarily, because it's that kind of projector base and they have the drones and all of that different stuff. They even incorporated fireworks, but in a way that you and I would both like, because I know we're not big firework people. They like catapulted a ball into the stratosphere. It was just very, very well done. And Hank Aaron's widowed wife was in the stands and recognized and everything. It was very, very, very cool. I would highly recommend finding it on Twitter or X if you haven't watched it to check it out.
I was going to say, I'm probably going to be able to find that pretty quick. I'll watch it. All right, we go to Summer League. 2 games to note here for Win Some. Timberwolves bet up from a 3.5-point favorite to a 5.5-point favorite. Beat the absolute tar out of the Pistons, 89-73. And then Thunder bet up from 4.5 to 7.5. Beat up on the Magic themselves, 92-75. Before we move on from Win Some into some dog videos, you have something you'd like to add.
Another quick Win Some that just came up on my feed. For anyone who missed it yesterday, we had the NHL announce their opening night games. The schedule is officially out now for the full 82-game regular season, and with that, we have NHL win totals that are out there.
But we didn't wait to play the dog video. Here's the dogs. Look at this. Loves to steal the kitchen towel. How about this? Don't do it. Don't.
He did it.
Every time. Somewhat cat-like behavior, if you will.
Very sneaky walking up, too. He's looking right in the eyes, too. He's like, I know I'm not supposed to do this. Yep. I got to do it.
That's how you know there's no discipline in that house. All right, next one. Ooh,
Speaking of no discipline.
I mean, that's not really a dance. We know what we're doing here. Come on now.
That's not a dance, Brian.
Take care.
Brian Ortega in our ear just said, dog doing a cute little dance.
Yeah, right. I mean, clearly, we're itching a little bit.
That's not my tile.
Yeah, very true. You're going to have to clean that up. All right, maybe you lose some there. No, it's a dog video. We were told dog videos don't belong in lose some, so we will not put that evil out there. Lose some. Nerfy. Most bet All-Star Game prop last night. National League scored 2 on Tarek Skubal, who you said was distracted? Or he was distracted from the interview that he was doing?
We'll talk about this a little bit. Yeah, he and Cal Raleigh, both as pitcher-catcher, were mic'd up for the broadcast. And so you could tell he wasn't loving it. It shouldn't appear.
How about this? No Judge, Ohtani, or Raleigh in the, I think, inaccurately named swing-off. The name should be something else, but it's somewhat inappropriate.
Use your brain for that one. That's fun. But absolute lose some. How do you not have the guy who's leading the league in home runs right now, just won the home run derby the day before, the defending league MVP, biggest home run guy in the world, and Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani are the most famous players? Why are they just chilling, taking a nap in the dugout? What are we doing?
I don't know. I was going to say, so I saw something which I did not believe to be true. However, if I was a Major League Baseball star, I would totally do this. Allegedly, they weren't there. They left.
No.
I would leave.
They left the stadium?
My day is
That's
done.
what you're telling me?
My day is done.
No.
I'm out of here. I'm punching out. I got stuff to do. I got to get back on a flight. I got to get out of here. Eugenio Suarez also lose some hit by a pitch last night, too.
That's why we don't let that's what you get for letting a White Sox pitcher in this thing.
Oh, there we go. You just wanted that, didn't you? You just saved that thing up. NBA Summer League 2 lose sums from last night. Market gets it wrong. Pelicans -1.5 to -3.5 lose outright to the Trailblazers. And how about this? Fever -12.5. I was watching this game, too. Up to -16. Only win by 8 yesterday. Never even close to covering that number against the Sun.
We talked about this game, too, that we thought 16 might be too many points to give the Sun. Ends up being the case. Unfortunately, though, for the Fever, more than not getting the cover for you is that Caitlin Clark goes out with a groin injury at the very end of the game. Questionable for today, but I would say very unlikely, hence why we're seeing around 9.5, 10.5 point spread against the Liberty today.
Yep, rough beats for you here. NL better, sorry, -115 to -132. You were looking pretty good, but 6-0 lead ends up in a push for you at most spots. But 6-0, you can't blow it, and you end up in a tie 6-6. Pete Alonso, MVP. I got a text yesterday from Will Hill. I did not respond because I just didn't see it until later, but I think he had a Pete Alonso MVP.
Oh,
ticket.
did he?
Yeah, among some others.
It's a tough feat.
Yeah.
We mentioned it earlier. Kyle Schwarber steps in the what you want to not call a swing off and goes 3 for 3 in his appearance.
Good one. Paul Skeens also still can't get a win with all the All-Stars around him. Absolutely atrocious.
Finally get some first inning run support.
Yep.
You're up big, can't get the dub.
All right, win some, lose some, brought to you by the Sharp Plays. Before the lines move, Sharp Plays already there. They don't follow the market. They help shape it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sports books or full-time sharps all by yourself. But with the Sharp Plays, it's possible. Backed by advanced AI and connected to trusted insider sources, the Sharp Plays deliver the kind of edge that serious bettors count on every day. You'll get free betting reports, real-time alerts, and market-moving insights straight to your inbox or at speed. And this isn't some summer side hustle. The Sharp Plays has been proving it since 2011 with documented results, public logs, and transparent receipts. SharpPlays.com, trusted by pros, watched by the books. Visit sharpplays.com. Stay ahead of the line.
Okay, last couple minutes here. I want to get back to the NFL as VSiN's football training camp week rolls on. Yesterday, we did the quarterback rankings that came out from ESPN on the poll that was taken from all these different execs and scouts and all of this stuff. And we were talking about Jayden Daniels being number 5 on this list and all of the expectations for he and the Washington Commanders coming into this year. And it happens to be on a day as well where Terry McLaurin spoke publicly for the first time about his contract situation. He has been frustrated for a while and vocalized that yesterday. Take a listen.
Yeah, I've been pretty frustrated. I'm not going to lie. Everything that has transpired up until this point has just been disappointing and frustrating. I've wanted to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I have bought our first home here. So this has been somewhere where I've always wanted to be.
And he did make a comment along the lines of saying that, if I don't get something worked out, why would I be on the field? Something along those lines.
Like it's going to be hard to see the field or something like that.
Yeah. But obviously, yes, the Washington Commanders brought in Deebo Samuel, but they didn't bring him in to be a Terry McLaurin replacement on the outside, right? He's supposed to be a complement. He's supposed to make that wide receiver group better. And Terry McLaurin was the dude for Jayden Daniels next year. I imagine this gets resolved ideally quickly in short order, but how big of a deal is this, you think, for Washington and their young quarterback?
I think it's just, generally a big deal in that you just don't really want to deal with this stuff before the season begins, before training camp begins. Having said that, I always tend to lean to the side of they'll figure it out. I think we generally always get there for the most part. So I'll worry about this. I think will start to register in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if this is continuing to drag on, if he's not out there, if he's missing time, if he leaves, like allegedly the Bengals' first-round selection has, right? Those are the things where I think you're maybe a little bit more worried about.
By the way, just that story. So Shamar Stewart apparently has been working out back at Texas A&M or something like that. So that made people go, what if he just doesn't play this year and then he goes back and plays at Texas A&M? He's not allowed to do that.
So this was brought up by a couple, and I think I'll give them credit. It was the Cover 3 guys, Bud Elliott and others, where obviously you can do that in baseball, right? Where you can get drafted and then you can go back. Legally, you could push the envelope and say, we can do it in another sport. And I'm very much simplistically arguing this thing right now. Why not here? The problem, which was also brought up, is the Bengals do still retain the draft rights of you. That's what happens. You draft the rights to that player. So even if he does do that, all right, I'm coming back out next year. Cool. We still have your rights. And more than likely another NFL team, because if you do this, you're going to give all of the leverage to your players. Then all of a sudden, another NFL team's not going to come in and then trade for those rights. Yeah. So I'm with you. you heard that initially, you're like, cool, stick it to the man. But then initially it's like, if you give it some thought, it pretty much falls apart quickly.
He is one of 2 first-round picks that have not signed their rookie contracts, and there are 30 of 32 second-round picks who have yet to do that as well. I do have the quote here, by the way, now from Terry McLaurin. Quote, without any progressive discussions, it's kind of hard to see how I step on the field. Had nearly 1,100 yards last season, 13 touchdowns, has led the Commanders in receiving yards every year he's been in the league since 2019. Leads the NFL as well in tight window receptions, so that's a big one out there. And I know that this isn't the regime that brought him in, but he's been a good soldier through what's been some tough times in Washington.
And I just throw it out there, like this is kind of a can of worms to open up, but it speaks to what we've hit on quite a few times, which is maybe the overvalued nature of the Commanders. But I don't know about you. You're a former 49ers fan. You might have a little bit better insight. Former 49ers fan. You're a 49ers fan. But the former 49ers receiver, Deebo Samuel,
on the decline.
Yeah, like, is he that big of an option for you, if you will? Yeah, like such a great addition, for lack of a better term.
I think he's a nice compliment, but yes, he is a player that's on the decline. And
a little puffy.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm not a believer necessarily in that mini camp video that was going around, like, oh, he's big, he's slow. I think he'll be just fine from that regard. Okay, we'll be right back, kicking off hour 2 next on Follow the Money.